Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name's FPL Nacho and the international break is finally coming to an end and we can begin to preview game week 13 and there are a lot of hot topics to discuss. Importantly in this video, I want to look at the best midfielders to target. With recent injury concerns to the likes of Mitoma and Jarrod Bowen, I think the mid-price midfielders are going to be very popular for our transfer strategy. So I'm going to tell you the best ones to buy as well as some potential Matty cash replacements with the difficult fixtures coming up for Aston Villa. So as always, if you are new around here, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. And of course, if you're enjoying the video, please do drop a like. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay, so first up, as I mentioned, I want to be looking at three midfielders that need to be on our radars ahead of game week 13. Now, a bit of a spoiler alert, I haven't put the likes of Cole Palmer or Sterling into this list, as I'm going to compare them against one another later on in this video, so please do stick around for that, as it is going to be pretty essential viewing. But the three players I want to discuss right now is going to be West Ham's Kudos, Brentford's Mbeumo, and of course Crystal Palace's Eze. I think there are other options out there, but with the injury to Mitoma in particular, I think there are going to be managers looking to move away from the Brighton man. And these are the three that I think need to be on your radar. So first up, I want to look at Kudos. Now, all of the underlying stats are based on per 90 minutes over the course of the season so far. And it's been a bit of a stop-start season for him. When he's come into the West Ham team, he has been fantastic, but his game time has been very, very sporadic. However, it looks like Antonio is going to be out for potentially 3 months. So we could see a situation where Jarrod Bowen gets deployed as a forward and Kudos on the right wing. But of course, with the international break, Bowen has left the England squad with an injury, so we need to get an update. But regardless, I think this is good news for Kudos and his minutes. So 0.2 XG per 90 is decent reading alongside 0.1 XA per 90, which is of course expected assists, and big chances per 90 at 0.25. So decent reading, not the best when we compare it to the other two assets, but it's perfectly fine. And again, the minutes have been very, very sporadic, so I'm not expecting him to be putting up massive numbers right now. I think once he actually integrates into the team, I think we're going to see an even better FPL option. Now, in terms of fixtures coming up for West Ham, Burnley away is a brilliant fixture. Palace at home can be a little bit hit and miss, with the Palace defence being pretty decent, alongside Spurs away and Fulham away. So I would argue of the fixtures, they could be deemed as the worst of the three options, but I still think it's a very good entry point if you want to go for Kudos in game week 13. I think if you don't do it now, you probably aren't going to go there with Crystal Palace, Spurs and Fulham the following 3 game weeks. Now, looking at Mbeumo, the most expensive at 6.8 million. I think we all earmarked game week 14 as an opportunity to buy back Mbeumo into our FPL teams with that brilliant home fixture against Luton, followed by, of course, Brighton, who are really struggling to keep clean sheets, and then Sheffield United away. So the market is going to move towards Mbeumo in game week 14 regardless. But I think game week 13 is absolutely fine to invest in Bryan Mbeumo. Look at the underlying numbers, 0.55 XG per 90. This does include penalties, but again, penalties isn't a bad thing if a player is getting them. It is just an added string to their bow, and it is a good thing from an FPL perspective. And 0.19 XA per 90 as well. It isn't actually the best, even though it is highlighted green. I do apologise. Eze is actually leading the way in that department. But 0.75 big chances per 90 was really unlucky not to score in the previous game week. And I think right now, the kind of general consensus on Mbeumo is a lot of us want to go there in game week 14. So why don't we, if you're sat there with maybe a Jarrod Bowen and he does get ruled out, or a Mitoma, go in 1 week early and just getting the transfer done. I think it's a player that ticks all the boxes, guaranteed game time on penalties, and also really solid underlying numbers. And yes, I know Arsenal is at home in game week 13, but we've seen Brentford put up great performances against the big teams, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Mbeumo potentially get on the score sheet in that game. So Mbeumo, game week 14 looks amazing, but I honestly think game week 13 is perfectly fine if you're looking to buy. The last option I will look at is Eze at 6.1 million. Coming back after that long-term injury, 0.36 XG per 90, 0.26 expected assists per 90, really solid numbers. The Crystal Palace talisman, and the fixtures coming up are great as well. Luton away, followed by West Ham away and Bournemouth at home. Those three I think are really, really good for Eze. And it's important to note as well, alongside Mbeumo, Eze is also a penalty taker. Kudos obviously not being the penalty taker in that West Ham team. So Eze's underlying numbers are brilliant as well. And at that price point of 6.1 million, I wouldn't argue against anybody potentially going for Eze instead of Mbeumo for game week 13. So my conclusion is this. If you own Mitoma or Bowen, I would wait until we get the press conferences on Friday for a bit more of an update. If either or both are ruled out, the way I would prioritise these right now is Kudos 3. I think he's a luxury transfer for your teams. I don't think it's a desperate move. I think Eze is just going to be number 2. 6.1 is amazing value, but I'm just going to put Mbeumo ahead of Eze because I think we're all going to want to go there in game week 14 regardless. And I think doing it 1 week early is not a problem, even though it is Arsenal at home. If you can own both Mbeumo and Eze as part of a double up, I think that's a really shrewd FPL move. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Next up, I want to look at some defenders who could be alternatives to Matty Cash with these Aston Villa fixtures coming up. So as I mentioned, Matty Cash, a very popular asset in the game right now, but the fixtures coming up for Aston Villa are a little bit ropey to say the least from both a clean sheet potential and what maybe Matty Cash will offer going forward in these games. So maybe the time is up for him as an FPL option because at 5.2 million, it's quite a lot of money tied down in a player that we might not deem to be actually good value going forward. And I think he's around 35% owned. And even if you don't own Matty Cash, this will be valuable as the likes of Reece James and Saliba, as you can see on my screens, are players that I do want you to consider for your FPL teams. And the big thing as well is, do we even need to sell Matty Cash? So hopefully I can tick all these boxes off for you in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So first up, looking at Matty Cash, he leads the way for XG per 90 at 0.23. There shouldn't be any surprises there with the way that he's deployed in the Aston Villa team. And the expected assists at 0.11 per 90. Decent reading. Again, when we compare that to someone like a Saliba, we ain't buying Saliba for his attacking potential. I know he scored a few game weeks ago, but that isn't going to be the norm. 0.06 XG per 90 for Saliba, 0.01 expected assist. We are getting literally nothing from him in this Arsenal team. He may get some goal threat from set pieces, but that is it. So the big factor here when we compare Cash and Saliba first and foremost is feels like a very boring sideways move, but with the fixtures coming up for Arsenal, Brentford, Wolves, Luton, Aston Villa away, I can see 2 clean sheets over that period for the Arsenal defender. And going for a double up of Gabriel and Saliba in your defence could be a really nice differential move for the longer term. But Saliba at 5.4 million, it's a good investment, but it isn't an exciting investment, it is worth noting. Even though he is predicted to score the most points over the next 4 game weeks, it's a sensible move, but it depends what structure you want to go for your team. And the reason why I mentioned the structure is because the way I like to do my defence is I like to have one medium price defender like Matty Cash that offers high upside. So in recent years, that has been a Trent Alexander-Arnold, a Trippier, those sort of players. I then like to have 2 or 3 additional defenders that are more my basic defenders. These are going to be centre-backs who pick up clean sheets along the way at mid prices. So for example, the likes of Botman, Mark Guy, Mitchell, those kind of players. And then we have our budget options like a Lascelles or somebody like a Charlie Taylor. So if you were to move your exciting pick of Matty Cash to Saliba, you are losing that little bit of excitement, that rock and roller pick in defence. So that is why Reece James has entered the conversation. Now, I know the risk that comes with Reece James. 0.08 XG per 90 isn't very good, but 0.78 expected assists per 90 is fantastic reading. Now, again, this is a player that has come back from a long-term injury, but I will remind you, he is the team captain at times. He is the club captain. I know Gallagher has been the captain on the pitch, but he is the club captain. And with the fixtures coming up, Newcastle away doesn't feel like a good entry point. Brighton at home, Man United away, Everton away. We're probably not looking at Reece James necessarily as a clean sheet magnet, but I do think he is one of the few players in the game who offers that huge ceiling for double-digit returns from the attacking department alone. Now, the big issue with Reece James is the minutes. We know the Christmas period is going to be very, very congested. There is going to be 2 or 3 games in a week. And with Malagusto waiting in the wings to come on, who has proved himself in this Chelsea team, I could see a very, very common situation where Reece James plays one, Malagusto plays the midweek, followed by Reece James playing the weekend. So I absolutely love Reece James as an option. I would love to go there. But right now, the entry point doesn't feel right away against Newcastle, and also the minutes very difficult to predict with him as he hasn't actually completed a 90 minutes so far this season. So yes, Reece James should be on your minds, but I just don't think it is the right time to buy right now. I think we could be in for a bit of pain until maybe around game week 16 or 15, where that could be a good investment. So the conclusion is this: Matty Cash is okay to hold for the next few game weeks. Spurs away is not ideal. I'd expect them to concede, but then they have Bournemouth away, which is a decent fixture. And then after that, City at home, Arsenal at home. Those are definitely fixtures we can look to move away from Matty Cash. So if you don't need to make the move, I think holding him is absolutely fine. Otherwise, I do like the boring move to Saliba to get yourself the Arsenal double defence. Yes, you aren't going to get exciting attacking returns, but he is a solid pick with those fixtures coming up. Otherwise, there are some cheaper options available to you, which I will discuss in a video later on this week, so make sure you are subscribed. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Just a little bit too early to invest in Reece James in my eyes. Last up, I want to touch on those two Chelsea midfielders that have to be on your radar for game week 13. And of course, I am talking about Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer, two informed Chelsea midfielders right now at very different price ranges. Sterling coming in at 6.9 million and Cole Palmer at 5.2 million. Now, looking at the underlying numbers, you can see it's actually a landslide for Cole Palmer, 0.68 XG per 90 compared to Raheem Sterling's 0.34. Really solid underlying numbers for Cole Palmer. But I do want to highlight that, of course, Cole Palmer is the Chelsea penalty taker. If we take out penalties in this situation, Cole Palmer's expected goals non-pen is actually 0.22, while Sterling's remains at 0.34. So in terms of open play XG, Cole Palmer is actually worse off than Raheem Sterling. But as I discussed with the likes of Mbeumo and Eze, penalties shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. It is a good thing because even if Cole Palmer plays badly, if Chelsea play badly, all he needs is a penalty to get himself a double-digit return. So yes, it is slightly skewed with the penalties, and it's worth noting Chelsea have had quite a lot of penalties. I don't think it's a sustainable amount that they've achieved. It's still a great thing that a player like Cole Palmer at 5.2 million has penalties. Also, the expected assists, double, even triple that of Raheem Sterling at 0.36. And also the big chances at 0.89 as well. So I think the temptation right now is for managers maybe to think to themselves they've missed the boat on Cole Palmer and want to go a little bit different with someone like a Raheem Sterling at 6.9 million. And I don't mind it. However, with looking at the underlying numbers right now, I think 6.9 million is quite a lot to pay for, especially as we discussed previously, Mbeumo, Eze, all looking like guaranteed game time with great fixtures, much better than that of Chelsea's. And it's also worth noting, a really significant player in the shape of Nkunku is returning to this Chelsea team. So whereas we know exactly what Mbeumo and Eze are going to do in their respective teams, we don't really know how this Chelsea team is going to look going forward with the introduction of Nkunku in the team. I would expect Nkunku to get very limited minutes in the Newcastle game, maybe start to get integrated for Brighton with the expectation of starting the Man United game. Does that mean Palmer comes out? Does that mean Sterling comes out? I don't know the answer to that. So I think it's quite a risky time to be buying Chelsea assets right now. But if I was to buy one, it would have to be Cole Palmer because the risk is a lot less at 5.2 million. And being on penalties and being basically the man of the match each week for Chelsea, I think his game time is still pretty decent on that right side of the midfield. And I can't justify paying an additional 1.7 million for Raheem Sterling, even though he is a great differential. So that is going to wrap up today's video, guys. I really hope it has provided some value. It is great to be back, even though the international break is still looming. Game week 13 is on the horizon and a Saturday deadline. Do not miss that one. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please do drop a like and smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you on Friday for my team reveal. Take care. Cheers.